Human, you can't just marry me. My sisters demand you take them too. That calm was why he had accepted the assignment to the Crithari orbital habitat. Fix a damaged fusion stabilizer, help a new species earn trust in the galactic Concord, then go home. Simple work, honest work. No one warned him that saving a life could start a diplomatic disaster. The habitat hung above a pale blue gas giant, a massive ring-shaped structure glowing softly against the stars. Elias floated through one of its maintenance corridors, magnetic boots clicking gently against the metal floor. His helmet visor displayed repair data, power levels, and a calm countdown timer. He was alone, or so he thought. The alarm screamed without warning. Reactor pressure spiked, lights flickered, gravity wavered then snapped back hard enough to rattle his teeth. Stabilizer breach, Elias muttered. Of course. He turned and ran. The Crithari were not human. They were taller, leaner, with silver-blue skin and glowing eyes adapted for low light. Their society valued honor, family, and tradition above all else. Elias respected them, but he didn't fully understand them. That was why he was here. When he reached the reactor chamber, heat blasted through his suit. A warning flashed red across his visor. Emergency shields were failing, and in the center of it all stood a Crithari woman. She was frozen in place, one arm pinned under a collapsed support beam, energy arcing wildly around her. Her breathing was fast and uneven. Panic showed clearly in her glowing eyes. Elias didn't stop to think. He slammed his toolkit onto the floor and rushed forward, ignoring the rising radiation warnings. He wedged a portable brace under the beam and activated it, muscles straining as the machine groaned. The beam lifted just enough. "Move," he shouted. She tried. She stumbled. The stabilizer cracked again, sending a wave of energy through the room. Elias grabbed her arm and pulled her clear just as the chamber sealed itself in emergency lockdown. They hit the floor together outside the chamber, both breathing hard. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the Crithari woman looked at him, eyes wide, glowing brighter than before. "You risked your life," she said slowly, her voice steady but filled with something Elias couldn't name. Elias laughed weakly. Part of the job. That was when everything went wrong. Hours later, the habitat was stable. Medical teams cleared Elias for light radiation exposure. He sat in a quiet observation room, sipping recycled water and staring out at the gas giant below. He was exhausted. He wanted sleep. Instead, the door slid open and the Crithari woman entered, this time wearing formal robes marked with glowing symbols. Behind her followed several officials. Elias stood quickly. Hi, glad you're okay." She inclined her head. "I am Valera of the House Crithar. And you, Elias Mercer of Earth, have claimed me." Elias blinked. "I'm sorry I've what?" The officials stiffened. One of them activated a recording device. Valera stepped closer, placing her hand over her chest. "Before witnesses, you risked death to save me. By Crithari law, this is a declaration of lifelong bond." Elias' mouth opened, closed, opened again. "No," he said gently. "I think there's been a mistake. This wasn't." The room doors slammed open. 3 more Crithari women entered, each carrying themselves with authority. Their eyes locked onto Elias like targeting systems. The atmosphere changed instantly. Valera stiffened. "Sisters," the tallest stepped forward, her expression cold. "So this is the human." Elias felt very small. She continued, voice sharp. "You claim our sister, human, yet you did not come to us." "I didn't claim anyone," Elias said, raising his hands. "I fixed a reactor." A murmur rippled through the room. Another sister laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. "He denies the bond." The third sister studied Elias carefully. "Or he does not understand." Valera turned to Elias, her voice urgent now. "You must accept responsibility. If you do not, my honor is broken." Elias swallowed. "I don't want to dishonor anyone, but I can't. I don't even know your customs." The tallest sister crossed her arms. "Then learn quickly." She stepped closer, towering over him. If one sister bonds, all sisters must be honored. This is law. Elias stared at her. All of you? Yes. The room fell silent. Elias felt a headache forming. This wasn't engineering. This wasn't even diplomacy. This was something else entirely. Within hours, the incident spread. Galactic Concord officials arrived. Legal teams argued. Translators worked nonstop. News feeds lit up with speculation. A human engineer had accidentally triggered an ancient Crithari bonding ritual. Some species found it amusing. Others found it alarming. Elias sat in a secure chamber, hands folded, listening as voices rose on the other side of a transparent barrier. This cannot stand. If humans can claim noble Crithari, it was unintentional. Intent does not matter to tradition. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. I just fixed a machine, he whispered. Valera entered the chamber alone later. Her posture was proud, but her eyes were tired. I did not wish to trap you, she said softly. Elias looked at her. Then why didn't you stop this? Because, she replied, if I reject the bond, my sisters lose status. Our house fractures. I could not do that. Elias nodded slowly. On Earth, we break traditions when they hurt people. Valera tilted her head. Then your species is reckless. Sometimes, Elias agreed. Sometimes we survive because of it. She considered that. You are calm, she said. Most would panic. I am panicking, Elias said. I just do it quietly. That earned him a brief smile. The next day, the sisters demanded a formal hearing. The Concord chamber filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Elias stood alone at the center, wearing a simple human uniform. Across from him stood Valera and her sisters, regal and unyielding. The eldest sister spoke first. Human Elias Mercer. Do you accept the bond? Elias took a breath. I accept responsibility, he said carefully, but not ownership, not control, not harm. The chamber erupted. The sister narrowed her eyes. Explain. Elias lifted his head. Where I come from, bonds are choices made together, not traps set by accident. I respect your traditions, but I will not destroy my life or yours by pretending to understand something I don't. Silence followed. Valera's sisters exchanged looks. Elias continued, voice steady now. Humans survive by adapting, by listening, by changing rules that no longer protect us. Maybe this is not about marriage. Maybe it's about trust. The eldest sister studied him for a long moment. This hearing is not concluded, she said finally. You will remain under protection until judgment is reached. As guards escorted Elias away, Valera watched him go, her expression unreadable. For the first time in centuries, Crithari tradition stood on uncertain ground. And for the first time since joining the stars, humanity had shown the galaxy something unexpected. Not strength, not weapons, but the courage to question destiny itself. The chamber Elias was placed in was not a prison, but it felt like one. The walls were smooth crystal alloy, glowing softly with Crithari light patterns that shifted with unseen energy flows. There were no bars, no guards inside, but every surface hummed with quiet authority. The door sealed with a sound that reminded Elias of final decisions. He sat on the edge of a resting platform, hands clasped, breathing slowly. He had faced reactor meltdowns, hull breaches, and pirate ambushes in deep space. None of them had felt as dangerous as this. Outside the chamber, the galaxy argued about him. The Galactic Concord Emergency Council convened within hours. Species from dozens of worlds filled the massive circular hall. Some watched from floating hollow discs, others appeared as shimmering projections. Every seat was occupied. At the center of the storm was one simple question. Had a human just triggered a binding Crithari noble union? If yes, what did that mean for galactic law? Voices clashed from every direction. This sets a dangerous precedent. The human did not consent. Crithari law is clear. Human law is equally clear. The alliance could fracture. Valera stood silently beside her sisters at their delegation platform. She kept her posture straight, but inside, her thoughts were loud and tangled. She replayed the moment again and again. The heat, the collapsing beam, Elia's pulling her free without hesitation. Among the Crithari, such an act was sacred. It meant choosing another's life over one's own future. It was not romance. It was loyalty proven by action. She had followed tradition without thinking. Now the weight of it pressed on her chest. Her eldest sister, Caliph, spoke calmly but firmly. Our law is ancient. It has preserved us through extinction-level wars and dying stars. We will not discard it because a human finds it inconvenient. A conquered representative from a scaled species responded sharply, and we will not force a sentient being into a lifelong bond without consent. Murmurs spread. Another delegate leaned forward. Perhaps the bond can be voided. Valera turned, eyes flashing. If it is voided, my honor is broken. My house loses standing. My sisters suffer for my survival. The chamber quieted. Caliph placed a hand on Valera's shoulder. This is why tradition matters. Across the hall, a human diplomat named Dr. Helena Ross watched closely. She had spent years studying alien cultures, but even she felt uneasy. Humans valued choice. Crithari valued obligation. Neither side was wrong. That was the problem. Back in his chamber, Elias was pacing now. His engineering instincts screamed for a system to analyze, a problem to break into parts. So he did what he always did. He started asking questions. He activated the chamber interface. Request cultural archive access. Crithari bonding customs. The system paused, then responded. Access granted, limited. Holographic symbols filled the air. Elias watched, listened, learned. The bonding ritual wasn't about romance or control. It was about survival. In ancient times, Crithari families lived in deadly environments where losing one member could doom all. Bonds ensured no one stood alone. Over centuries, survival rules had hardened into law. Elias rubbed his face. You survived too well, he muttered. Hours later, the door opened. Caliph entered alone. She was even more imposing up close, her presence filling the room without effort. Elias straightened instinctively. You study our ways, she said. I'm trying to understand, Elias replied honestly. She regarded him carefully. Many would beg, many would rage, you do neither. I don't see how that helps, he said. Caliph folded her arms. You humans are strange. You challenge fate as if it were a suggestion. Elias smiled faintly. That's one way to put it. She stepped closer. If you reject the bond, you dishonor my sister. If you accept it, you dishonor yourself. Do you see the problem? Yes, Elias said. That's why forcing either answer is wrong. Caliph's eyes narrowed. Then speak. What is your solution? Elias took a breath. I don't have one yet, but I think your law is asking the wrong question. She tilted her head. Explain. The question is, did I risk my life? Elias said. The question is, why does that require ownership instead of trust? Caliph was silent. Elias continued. Humans risk their lives for strangers every day. Firefighters, medics, soldiers. If every act of sacrifice meant lifelong binding, our species would collapse. And yet you survive, Caliph said. Because we choose who we bind to, Elias replied. Choice makes bonds stronger, not weaker. Caliph studied him for a long time. You speak like a philosopher, she said. I'm an engineer, Elias answered. I fix broken systems. She turned to leave. Then be careful, you are standing inside one. When she was gone, Elias sat down heavily. The next day, the conquered demanded a public explanation from Elias. He was escorted back into the chamber, standing before the galaxy once more. His heart pounded, but his voice remained steady. I did not come here to take anything, he said. I came to help. I did not know saving a life could destroy another. Valera watched him closely. I respect Crithari tradition, Elias continued. But traditions are tools. Tools should protect people. When they hurt people, they must change. Some delegates nodded, others bristled. A crystalline being spoke sharply. You presume much for a newcomer species. Elias met its gaze. So did everyone who ever survived extinction. The room stirred. He turned toward the Crithari sisters. I will not abandon Valera, I will not dishonor her, but I will not pretend marriage is the only form of loyalty. Caliph stepped forward. You offer words, we require structure. Elias nodded. Then let me build one. He activated his wrist device, projecting a simple framework. A human-style alliance compact, he explained. Shared responsibility, mutual defense, honor through action, not ownership, a bond chosen and reaffirmed, not enforced. Whispers spread rapidly. This is not marriage, Caliph said. No, Elias agreed, it's something new. Valera felt her breath catch. New was dangerous. New was terrifying, but new also meant survival. The council recessed for deliberation. Hours passed. Elias returned to his chamber, exhausted but strangely calm. For the first time since the incident, he felt he had done something right. Valera came to him later, alone again. You challenge everything we are, she said softly. Elias looked up. Only because I think you're worth saving. She studied him, searching for deception, pride, fear. She found none. You risked your life for me, she said. Now you risk your future for my people. He shrugged. Seems fair. For the first time, she laughed openly. Outside the chamber, the galaxy held its breath. The Crithari had never rewritten a bond law, but they had never faced humans before. And humanity, once again, was about to prove that its greatest weapon was not force, but understanding. The waiting was worse than any danger Elias had faced before. In engineering, problems either failed or held. There were numbers, warnings, clear outcomes. Here there was only silence and time. The council had recessed, but the arguments did not stop. They echoed through corridors, data channels, and quiet looks from passing officials. Elias remained in his chamber, but this time it felt less like confinement and more like the calm before a storm. Across the habitat, Valera sat with her sisters in a private Crithari council room. The walls were carved with symbols of lineage and survival, each mark telling a story of a family that had endured disaster and loss. The sisters stood in a half-circle, tension thick between them. Caliph broke the silence first. The human's proposal weakens tradition. It reshapes it, said Lyrian, the second sister, whose voice was sharp and thoughtful. There is a difference. The galaxy is watching us, said Sarava, the youngest. If we bend, they will say we are weak. Valera finally spoke. If we do not bend, we may break. All three sisters turned to her. She lifted her chin, eyes steady. Our laws were made to protect us, but they were not made for a galaxy like this. We no longer live on dying worlds alone. We are surrounded by others, humans most of all. Caliph's expression hardened. And you trust this human so easily, Valera answered without hesitation. He had no reason to save me. He did not know our law. He did not ask for reward, yet he stood between me and death. Lyrian folded her arms. Actions matter more than words. Exactly, Valera said. And his actions continue. He stands alone before the conquered, risking his species' reputation for our honor. Sarava looked uncertain. If we accept his alliance compact, we change who we are. Valera stepped forward. No, we choose who we become. Meanwhile, the galactic conquered chamber buzzed with unease. Delegates whispered, argued, and speculated. Some feared humans were pushing cultural dominance. Others saw a chance for progress. Dr. Helena Ross stood among the human delegation, watching the chamber carefully. She had read Elias' proposal dozens of times. It was simple, clear, and dangerous. Not because it threatened power, because it challenged comfort. The Crithari had asked for time to consider. That alone shocked the conquered. They had never paused tradition before. The next cycle, Elias was summoned. He entered the chamber again, feeling every gaze settle on him. He did not bow or posture, he simply stood. Caliph spoke. Human Elias Mercer, You propose an alliance bond in place of our ancient ritual. Yes, Elias said. You understand that this bond would not elevate you within our houses, she continued. You would gain no authority, no title. I don't want authority, Elias replied. I want fairness, murmurs spread. Caliph continued. You would accept obligation without ownership. Yes. And lifelong responsibility without guarantee of reward. Yes. A pause, then Lyrian stepped forward. Why? Elias thought carefully before answering. Because trust given freely is stronger than trust taken by force. The chamber grew quiet. Caliph studied him. If we accept this path, others may demand the same freedom. Our laws could change forever. Elias nodded. So could your future. Valera felt her pulse quicken. Caliph raised her hand. We will test the human. A ripple of surprise spread. Caliph continued. Words are easy. We demand proof. She turned toward Elias. You will undertake a Crithari trial of burden, not as a bonded partner but as an ally. Elias swallowed. What does that involve? Responsibility, Caliph said, and risk. Hours later, Elias stood at the edge of the habitat's outer ring, staring at a section marked for emergency repair. A micrometeor storm had damaged shield nodes, and Crithari crews refused to approach due to unstable energy fields. It was dangerous. It was urgent. And it was exactly the kind of work Elias understood. Valera watched from the observation deck as Elias suited up, her hands clenched together. You do not have to do this, she told him through the calm. I know, Elias replied. That's why it matters. The outer hatch opened. Elias stepped into open space, tether lines snapping into place. The stars stretched endlessly around him, cold and indifferent. Warning alerts flashed. Energy surges danced across the shield nodes. He moved carefully, tools steady, breath controlled. Each repair took focus. One mistake could send feedback through his suit. Minutes stretched into an hour. Then another surge hit. The tether snapped. Valera gasped as Elias spun away from the habitat, drifting toward the void. Emergency thrusters failed to engage. For a moment the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then Elias acted. He ejected his toolkit in the opposite direction, using the force to slow his drift. He angled his suit, catching a weak magnetic pull from the habitat's frame. Slowly, painfully, he dragged himself back. When he reached the hull again, his hands were shaking, but he kept working. When the final node stabilized, the shield flared back to full strength. The storm passed. Cheers erupted across the habitat. Elias collapsed against the hull, exhausted. Inside the observation chamber, Caliph watched silently. So, Lyrian said quietly, what does tradition say now? Caliph did not answer immediately. She turned to Valera. Did he act for honor? Yes, Valera said. For obligation? Caliph asked. No. For reward? No. Caliph closed her eyes. The next day the conquered reconvened. Caliph stood tall. The Crithari recognized the human alliance compact. Shock rippled through the chamber. This bond will be recorded as equal responsibility without possession, she continued. The sisters' honor remains intact. The human remains free. Some delegates protested. Others applauded. Dr. Ross exhaled slowly. Elias felt his knees weaken. Valera stepped forward and faced him. You stood for us, she said. Not because you had to, but because you chose to. Elias smiled faintly. That's how humans do it. She placed her hand over her chest, Crithari style. Then let this be our bond. The galaxy would argue about this decision for years, but in that moment something fundamental shifted. Humanity was no longer just a newcomer. It was a species that could change the rules without breaking trust, and everyone was watching closely. The decision did not bring peace. It brought attention. Across the galactic conquered, reactions spread like a shockwave. News feeds replayed the moment again and again. The Crithari, one of the oldest and most tradition-bound species in the galaxy, had changed a sacred law because of a human. Some worlds celebrated it as progress. Others saw it as a warning. Within days, Messages flooded the conquered channels. Cultural councils demanded investigations. Political blocs called emergency sessions. A few powerful species accused humanity of quiet manipulation. Elias felt none of the triumph others tried to place on him. He returned to work almost immediately, helping repair minor systems on the habitat, keeping his head down, trying to feel normal again. But normal was gone. Everywhere he went, eyes followed him, some with respect, some with suspicion. Valera noticed it too. She walked beside him through one of the habitat's long corridors, their steps echoing softly. "You are becoming a symbol," she said. Elias sighed. "I hate symbols, they never get to rest." She studied him. "You could leave, return to Earth. Let this become someone else's problem." "I could," he agreed, "but then it would prove them right." "Who?" she asked. "The ones who think humans act brave only until things get hard." Valera nodded slowly. In the conquered chamber, pressure mounted. A coalition of species formally challenged the Crithari decision. They claimed it weakened interstellar stability. If ancient laws could be rewritten by outsiders, then no culture was safe. The words were polite. The meaning was not. Caliph stood before the council again, her posture firm. "We were not manipulated, we chose." A reptilian delegate leaned forward. "Under emotional stress, your noble was saved. Gratitude clouds judgment." Valera stepped forward sharply. "Then perhaps your people should learn gratitude." The chamber stirred. Dr. Helena Ross raised a hand. "This is not about control, it is about consent. No sentient being should be bound without choice." A metallic-voiced delegate replied, "Choice is a luxury of stable species." Elias, seated quietly behind the human delegation, felt his jaw tighten. That was when the first incident happened. A power fluctuation rippled through the habitat. Lights dimmed. Alarms chirped briefly before stabilizing. Technicians rushed to their stations. Elias frowned. That wasn't a natural surge. He ran diagnostics, fingers flying over the console. Someone had overridden a safety protocol. It was subtle, clean, professional, sabotage. Before he could report it, a second surge hit, stronger this time. Shield harmonics wavered. Panic spread through the habitat. Valera felt the tremor beneath her feet. "What is happening?" Elias was already moving. "Someone wants to prove this alliance was a mistake." He didn't wait for orders. He never did. Security teams moved to contain the issue, but the sabotage was layered. Multiple systems, timed to overwhelm response crews. "This isn't random," Elias muttered. "It's a test." "By whom?" Valera asked. "By someone who wants chaos." As emergency crews struggled, a message appeared across the conquered network. "Anonymous, calm. If human influence continues, instability will follow. This is your warning." The chamber erupted. Accusations flew instantly. "They warned us." "This is human escalation." "Remove the human from the habitat." Caliph's eyes burned. "Enough." She turned toward Elias. "Can you stop this?" Elias nodded once. "But not alone." She gestured sharply. "Then we stand with you." What followed was unlike anything the conquered had seen before. Human engineers and Crithari technicians worked side by side, sharing tools, bypassing old protocols, combining systems that had never been linked. Where Crithari methods were precise and ritual-based, humans were flexible and fast. Valera watched Elias reroute power manually, sweat forming at his brow as he shouted instructions. "Trust me," he said to a Crithari technician hesitating at a console. "I won't let it break." The technician hesitated only a moment, then obeyed. The sabotage was contained, but the message was clear. Someone was willing to risk lives to stop change. In the aftermath, the conquered demanded answers. Security traced the interference to a fringe alliance of species that believed humanity's adaptability was dangerous. Not violent conquerors, just afraid. Fear made them reckless. Elias sat in the chamber again, exhausted, hands clasped tightly. "They tried to frame us," a delegate accused. "They endangered Crithari lives," another countered. Caliph rose slowly. The chamber quieted. "You claim humanity destabilizes us," she said. "Yet when danger came, they did not flee. They did not command. They worked. They bled. They saved." She turned, gesturing toward Elias. This human had nothing to gain. He already paid the price of attention. Still, he stayed. Silence followed. Valera stepped forward. "Our ancestors created laws to survive fear. Today, we survived because we chose trust instead." Dr. Ross added quietly, "Humanity does not seek to rule traditions. We seek to live beside them." The vote that followed was narrow. Painfully narrow, but the challenge against the alliance failed. The sabotage was condemned. Sanctions were placed on those responsible. The message was sent. Change would not be reversed by fear. Later, in a quiet observation bay overlooking the gas giant, Elias leaned against the glass, staring out into the swirling clouds below. Valera joined him. "You could have walked away today," she said. "I thought about it," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" He smiled faintly. "Because every species deserves the chance we gave ourselves, to choose a better version of who we are." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "My sisters speak of you with respect now, even Caliph." "That's terrifying," Elias joked. Valera laughed softly. The galaxy did not suddenly trust humanity, but it began to understand them, not as conquerors, not as manipulators, but as something more unsettling. A species that did not just survive systems, a species that rewrote them and stayed to deal with the consequences. Far away, observers took note, because if humans could stand between tradition and extinction, then nothing in the galaxy was as fixed as it once seemed. The crisis faded, but its shadow remained. In the weeks that followed the sabotage attempt, the Crithari habitat became one of the most watched locations in the galaxy. Ships arrived daily, observers, diplomats, cultural scholars, and security envoys. Everyone wanted to see the place where an ancient law had bent without breaking. Elias kept working. That surprised many people. He did not ask for promotion. He did not accept media interviews. He did not speak in grand chambers unless asked. He repaired systems, trained mixed teams of humans and Crithari, and slowly helped stabilize the habitat into something stronger than before. Valera often watched him from a distance. Among her people, great change was usually driven by leaders, warriors, or elders. Elias was none of those. He was just a human who refused to leave a problem unfinished. Caliph noticed it too. One cycle, she summoned Elias to a private chamber overlooking the habitat's inner ring. The stars shimmered beyond the transparent barrier. "You have altered the balance," Caliph said without accusation. Elias nodded. "I didn't plan to. Intent matters less than outcome," she replied. "Because of you, other species now question their own laws." Elias hesitated. "Is that bad?" Caliph considered the question carefully. "It is dangerous and necessary." She turned to face him fully. "The Crithari survived by holding tightly to tradition, but survival is not the same as living." Elias said nothing. "You could have taken advantage of us," Caliph continued. "Others would have, you did not." "I wouldn't know how," Elias said honestly. That earned him a brief, sharp smile. The Galactic Concord released its final judgment soon after. The alliance compact between humanity and the Crithari was formally recognized. It was classified not as marriage, not as domination, but as a shared responsibility agreement. A new category, small, simple, but revolutionary. Across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some species quietly began reviewing their own ancient laws. Others strengthened them in fear. A few openly criticized humanity, warning that adaptation could erode identity. Humanity listened. Humanity did not argue. That worried everyone even more. Months passed. The attention slowly shifted elsewhere, as the galaxy always did. New crises emerged. New conflicts demanded focus. The Crithari habitat settled into a steady rhythm. One evening, Elias stood on an exterior observation platform, helmet off, safe behind layered shields. The gas giant below rolled slowly, bands of color shifting like a living painting. Valera joined him. "You are leaving," she said. Elias nodded. "My assignment officially ends tomorrow." Her chest tightened slightly. Crithari did not fear separation, but they respected its weight. "You will return to Earth," she said. "Yes." "And what then?" she asked. "I'll probably fix something that breaks," he replied. "Things tend to do that." She studied him. "You changed the course of interstellar law." "Does that not trouble you?" Elias thought for a long moment. "What troubles me is the idea that no one ever tries." Valera placed her hand over her chest. "Our bond remains." He smiled softly. "Because we choose it." "Yes," she said, "because we choose it." On the day of his departure, the habitat gathered to see him off. Not formally, not ceremonially, just people human and Crithari alike standing together. Caliph stepped forward last. "You are welcome among us," she said. "Not as kin by law, but as ally by choice." Elias bowed his head slightly. "That means more than you know." As his shuttle pulled away, Valera watched until it vanished into the stars. She did not feel loss. She felt connection. Years later, historians would argue endlessly about what truly happened during the Crithari incident. Some would say it was about love. Others would say politics. Some would call it manipulation. Others would call it progress. But among humans, the story was told differently. It was about an engineer who treated tradition like a system, one that could be respected, studied, and improved. Among the Crithari, the story was simpler. It was about a human who saved one of their own and then refused to take more than he deserved. Across the galaxy, one lesson spread quietly. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they were willing to stand in the space between what was and what could be, and stay there until everyone else caught up. And long after Elias Mercer returned to his quiet life among the stars, that truth remained. Humanity did not conquer the galaxy. It convinced it, one choice at a time.